Hi everyone, this is future editing Izzy, and by future I mean April. I filmed this video in December. If you're wondering where I've been for the last 5 months-ish, I've been doing a very intensive neurological rehabilitation treatment thing, which has taken up all of my time and my energy, and that has come to an end this week, which is a relief, and I hope to get back to regular video making, hopefully. At least that's my plan, and that's what I want to do, and hopefully now that I have more time and energy I can do that. So yes, I very much apologise for how ridiculously late this video is. It's going up in April when it's was supposed to go up in early January, but I just really haven't been able to use my energy to edit, so that's why it's so late, and I greatly apologise for that. And yeah, I hope you still enjoy it, and I know it's kind of long, but I tried editing it like 4 times and I just couldn't really cut it down anymore, so I don't know, put it on 1.5 speed, and you'll get through it pretty quick, and I promise it's fun, and I had a great time talking about all my favourite books and watching it back, thinking about all my favourite books. So yeah, that's all there is to say. This video is kind of old, but I hope you still enjoy it, and I'm sorry for the delay, and hopefully I will be back with more recent videos soon. Okay, bye. Hi guys, it's Izzy, and in today's video I'm going to be doing my favourite video to film, and that is my best books of the year. I did a poll on Twitter to ask how many books you wanted to see me talk about, and the most popular option was 15 books with 5 honourable mentions. I've read 225 books this year, so that was a hard task because I read so many fantastic books this year, just such incredible books, and there were literally multiple like 4.5 stars, 5-star books that I had to leave out of this video because I just don't have time to talk about them all. If you are a consistent watcher of my channel, you'll probably know quite a few of these, but I hope you get some recommendations of some absolutely incredible books to read in 2021, and yeah, these books are fantastic and I'm just really excited to talk about them with you. You probably have seen my worst books of 2020, hopefully I'll have posted that by now. So yes, enjoy my BTS Love Yourself top. My life is BTS. I breathe BTS. Like honestly, it's a problem. Like it's I don't read anymore. I just watch BTS. Like honestly, it's a problem. But yeah, without any further ado, let's get on to my favourite books of the year. I'm going to start off with the 5 honourable mentions. I'm just going to like talk about them briefly, why I liked them, what they're about. I don't know. I'm going to be quick with these. The first honourable mention is, I've got a lot of books here and they're looking precarious, but the first honourable mention is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This arc was kindly sent to me by Wildfire Books, and it comes out April 2021, so you can't read this yet, but pre-order it. And look at this beautiful arc. Like, I'm sorry, but have you ever seen a more beautiful arc? Because I haven't. This is a retelling of the story of Ariadne from Greek mythology. It's like a feminist retelling of sisterhood and agency and autonomy and men being trash, and it's just an incredible book. If you like Greek mythology, if you like, I would say, Madeline Miller, who wrote Circe and The Song of Achilles. The Song of Achilles is also an honourable mention in a minute, but if you liked either of those 2 books, I think you'll love this book. And yeah, if you just are a fan of retellings, feminism, Greek myths, read it. It's fantastic. The reason it didn't quite make it onto my top 15. One, there's too many books, and two, it broke my heart. And I find it hard to love books that break my heart. So yeah, that's the same reason with the next book, which is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Again, fantastic book, but it broke my heart, and so I'm like, can it be a favourite book if it destroyed me? You know, like it's hard to like count a book as your favourite if emotionally you're in therapy for it. I mean, I'm in therapy, not for books, but at this rate it could be. But yeah, this is another Greek retelling about the hero Achilles and I can never say it. Patroclus. I don't know how to say it. I'm partially deaf, so I can't hear sounds. Patroclus we'll go with. And oh, I read this in either January or February of this year, and I like still can't talk about it because I am like it broke my heart. It has the most beautiful writing. Oh, it is honestly stunning. The attention to detail, the way she makes you care for these characters, the way she makes you honestly, she just evokes so much emotion with her writing, and like weaves such a beautiful tale. And similar to Ariadne, just the way they write just pulls you in, and you just are like so entranced by the way they've written these stories. And it's a male romance between Achilles and Patroclus, and it's honestly one of like I was willing to die for them in like chapter 5. Like I was like, if anyone touches a hair on their heads, I will fight. And then also like I want in my brain they're happy and in love forever. So I'm chilling. The next book that is on honorable mentions, actually I've just realised there's 6. Oops. Sorry. Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was very close to making it onto the top 15, but there wasn't space. This is a YA book written in verse about 2 sisters who lose their dad in a plane crash, I believe. And after the death of their father, they then find out that the other exists. So they didn't know they had a sister, and it's only once he's died that his kind of like secret lives were revealed. And it's a story of sisterhood and feminism and friendship and the different opportunities. One girl grew up in America and one girl grew up in the Dominican Republic, and it talks about kind of like the misogyny that the girl who grew up in the Dominican Republic faces, and the lack of opportunity that she has in in contrast to the girl who grew up in America. It's written in verse. It's stunningly written. I think Elizabeth Acevedo is so talented. I also read The Poet X by her this year, which was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, she's just such a talented writer. It does have like a side female romance as well, which is always a great thing. So all around, just a fantastic book. The next book is What Stars Are Made Of by Sarah Allen. Again, I read this book in like January, February, and it's a middle grade book that follows the main character who has Turner syndrome, something you're born with. It's a genetic condition, and that just makes it harder for her to do things that normal children can do. But her sister is having a baby, and she is determined to win this science competition so that she can help her sister and her brother-in-law, who can't live together because they don't have enough money. If she wins this competition, then she'll have money. And she's also dealing with the emotions that come with her sister being pregnant and knowing that Turner syndrome is a genetic thing. So she could have a niece with Turner syndrome, and kind of figuring out whether she wants someone like her who can relate to her and connect with her, or if she wants her niece to have as easy a life and as happy a life as she can. And I think it just does such a fantastic job of exploring all the different feelings that come from being different, especially when you're that age, you're like 11 or 12, and kind of discovering that there are things, there are more obstacles for you, and things are different for you. And I know this is an honourable mention, so I'm talking about this way too much, but it's an Own Voices book. It has a main character with a disability, a genetic condition, and I just think it just really touched me. It did a wonderful job at exploring those feelings and still being hopeful and talking about being yourself and loving yourself. And yeah, I just can't recommend it enough. I just think it's brilliant. I think I wrote a full Goodreads review. So if you want to find out more, check it out. The next honourable mention is Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This, I believe, was a debut. It's a YA fantasy book and it is incredible. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically in this world, the king or like emperor, the ruler person, has this like court thing, which is like 11 people, and in this world there's like 11 ways for you to die. So when you have got all 11 people in your council, then you're pretty much invincible because each one protects you from one death risk. So once you have a full court, then you're kind of protected. But the thing is, each member of your court has to love you like unconditionally, not necessarily romantically, but they just have to love you, and then that's how you get protected from death. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's so good. There's so much going on beyond that. That's like just a very, very like basic plot description, because this again is an honourable mention and I don't have time to talk about it too much. But it was spellbinding. It was so immersive. The fantasy world was so realistic and so like vivid, and the characters were so interesting. The like magic and how that works was fascinating, and it was just such an engaging story that I just like was so obsessed with it. It was just like, I don't even know, like it was just insane, and I think everyone should read it. Next honourable mention is Black Girl Unlimited by Echo Brown. This is a half sort of memoir, half magical realism book, which follows Echo as she grows up, and she has a difficult home life with her mum, I believe, is a drug addict. I forget, kind of, because I read it quite in February, and she is sexually assaulted, I think, and then it kind of, the magical realism aspect comes in when she is suffering from like depression, and the people around her are suffering from mental health conditions, and her herself is struggling with like suicidal ideation and suicidal thoughts, and it kind of represents these mental illnesses in like a physical way of like she can have these like shadows, these like blankets come over her or other people, and I just think it was such a fascinating and brilliantly done exploration of mental health issues, and giving them kind of like a physical form almost was just brilliant, and it was so moving. And yeah, I just think it was so well written, and I would just encourage everyone to pick it up. I think it's a very important book and one that I really loved. Okay, so that's it for honourable mentions. Let's start at number 15 for my favourite books of the year. At number 15 is A Heart in a Body in the World by Deb Coletti, and this book, I read a lot of good books in February, as it turns out. Like, I'm just realising, like, all of these I read, like, quite a long time ago. Like, February was a good month for me. I was really reading those good books. And it was just one of those books that I read at the right time for me. I was starting to kind of go through the diagnostic process for PTSD and trauma, and kind of discovering the depth, I guess, of my own mental health. And it was a very difficult time for me because it was, it was very intense. A lot was happening at once. And I read this book which follows our main character, Annabelle, and she has PTSD, and she has witnessed an event involving her best friend that has left her extremely traumatized. And I didn't know what the event was going into the book, but it doesn't get revealed till, I want to say, like 80% in. So I would say just check the trigger warnings if you do have PTSD or you do have triggers. It didn't ruin the experience for me at all, knowing what the traumatic event was going in. Like, it didn't ruin the reading experience. So I would just say just be careful if you do have triggers. Like myself, I don't have those triggers, so I was okay to read it, but just double check. And it was just stunning. So Annabelle has witnessed this traumatic event, and in a moment of like sort of panic and overwhelming feeling of where her life is going to go next, she's struggling to see a future when she can't get past this trauma that she's been through, and so she decides to run across America. She's been a runner, but then one day she kind of just takes off and decides that that's what she needs to do. And so we kind of follow her on this journey of running, but also of healing almost. And her family, don't really understand at the start of the book, but throughout the process they support her in the way that they can, and they're there for her when she's ready. And her grandpa kind of like accompanies her on this trip across America, and seeing their bond grow was really, really beautiful. But seeing Annabelle like kind of be able to open up and start like sharing, what she's going through, and to start to move forward and work with, she does have a therapist, and kind of just like allow herself to feel what she needs to feel. And it was just a really, really powerful book, I think, for anyone, but especially for me, as I was going through a similar experience of having to start to open up, and to have these difficult conversations, and to ask for things that I needed. And Annabelle, went on a similar journey, and it was just so stunning. It was written so incredibly well. And I just can't recommend it enough. It made me cry so much. Like, it was just so beautiful. It was just a really powerful book for me, and I think I did get the most out of it because I read it at the right time. But I think anyone could get like something out of it. It's just like an incredible book. Oh God, there's so many books. Don't fall down, please. It's like Jenga. Okay, got it. Next book, number 14, The Last True Poets of the Sea by Julia Drake. Another book that kind of tackles mental health. You can tell there's a theme here. But this is a beautiful book that I read, that I buddy read, and we all like adored it. And it's a book that follows our main character. What's your name? Sorry, I forget everyone. Violet. And Violet lives in New York, and she's sort of gone a bit off the rails with partying and boys and sex and drink. And then her brother Sam, her younger brother Sam, attempts suicide and is put in a psychiatric hospital to heal from that, and to to be safe. And because he's entered this psychiatric unit, Violet's parents want her kind of to know that she's safe, and to kind of get her out of this kind of toxic environment she was in. And so they send her to Lyric in Maine, which is a town that Violet's grandma actually discovered after a shipwreck thing, and she goes to stay with her uncle, and it basically follows her as she makes friends, gets a job, works through her own issues, and also works through the fact that someone she loves and someone close to her in her life has attempted suicide, and how to deal with the emotions of feeling like, was there something you could have done differently, and that really painful experience of knowing that someone so close to you was hurting so much, and also feeling her own emotions, and yeah, again, kind of discovering her own mental health and what she needs to thrive, and the difficult family relationships. Like, it's quite a dysfunctional family. It's so hard to describe this book because it's so beautiful, and it doesn't sound that interesting, like based off the synopsis, but like, I promise you, it's so moving. Again, I read this at the right time. It talks about both for Sam and Violet that life is really painful and life hurts, and it can be hard to want to live and to want to yeah, stay in that world. And that's gonna like make me cry because it was again something that I read at the right time, and I just really loved how it discussed all those themes with such tact, but also it was so raw and honest. And there's also a female romance, which was really great. So yeah, we best move on because this video is already 20 minutes long. Okay, this was fantastic. Made me cry. Let's play How Many Times Did Izzy Cry This Year Over Books? A lot, okay? Number 13 is A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol. This is a middle grade book that I read recently, I think in November, October or November, and it follows our main character Addie, and she is autistic and she lives in Scotland, and she finds out about the witch trials of like in the 1600s, and finds out that her like area of Scotland was particularly important in the witch trials, and that they killed a lot of women witches, and Addie thinks that they should put up a memorial because they have a memorial for people who died in the war, and she doesn't understand why these women that were wrongfully killed don't get a memorial too. And so it kind of follows Addie as she fights for something that she really believes in. And she has two sisters, one who is autistic and one who isn't. And I really love the relationship between her and her older sister, who is autistic, and kind of her older sister kind of helping her get through these situations because she's been through them herself. And I feel like in books we usually see autistic characters who are very isolated and don't have anyone who understands what they're going through. And I thought it was a really nice touch to have a character who was genuinely able to support Addie in the way that she needed, and I think it was just a really beautiful relationship. But you know, Addie really connects with this story of the witches because they were killed for being different, and Addie can empathize so strongly with that. And you know, she kind of works through her emotions of being different because she knows that had she been alive in the 1600s, she probably would have been tried for being a witch too. And it's just a really beautiful story, and its own voices. It's written by an autistic author. Elle is really cool, and you should follow her on Twitter, and she's got a new book coming out next year, which I'm really excited for. And she's just an all-around great person. I know a lot of my autistic friends have loved this book and think it's a really great portrayal of autism, and really is both informational for neurotypical people and also comforting and relatable for neurodivergent people or autistic people, etc. And yeah, it's a middle grade book. It's pretty short, but it's such a compelling read. and I just didn't want to put it down. And yeah, it just really connected for me, and I think it was just such a well put together story, and yeah, I can't wait to read everything Elle ever writes. Coming in at number 12 is actually a sequel, and that is Ironheart by Nina Varela. This is the second and final book in the Cryers. It's like the sequel to Cryers War, but it's just a duology, so it's the final book. And it's just a perfect duology. Like, I truly have nothing else to say other than I adored the first book, and this book was just a dream of a sequel. Like, it did everything I wanted it to do. It answered every question I needed it to. The yearning, the sapphic yearning. Truly a masterpiece. I have not read such good yearning this year. Like, the yearning. I cannot emphasize the yearning enough. It was so good. And it was just such an exciting read. Like, I just could not put it down. I was so obsessed with it, and it had no flaws. Like, it truly, I could not improve it. Like, I literally couldn't have made it better. And it follows two main characters, Cryer and Ayla, and basically in this world they have autome, something like that, who are like, they're basically humans, but they're like made. They're like kind of like robots that are basically humans but perfect, and they have kind of taken over and oppressed the humans, and Ayla's family was killed, and she wants to kill Cryer, who is the daughter of the king or ruler. And yeah, so Ayla wants to kill Cryer in revenge, so that she can hurt them as much as she's been hurt. And so she gets a job as Cryer's maid lady, and shit happens. Stuff goes down. So yeah, that's what. And obviously, I won't say kind of the plot of the second book because spoilers. But it was just, yeah, it was fantastic. No improvement. Perfect. And also, like, I'm sorry. Who gave you the right to be so beautiful? The Sapphics. That's who. The next book coming in at number 11, Jenga. I swear to God, there's so many books here. It's carnage. That's the wrong way. Still the wrong way. Camp by L.C. Rosen. And the book Jack of Hearts, which I read last year, also by L.C. Rosen, also made it onto my best books of 2019. So he's a fantastic author. And as you can tell from this book, it's hella queer. And it basically follows our main character. Will Izzy ever remember anyone's name? It's unlikely. Randy. This is an arc, so it doesn't say it on the back. Randy. And basically every summer he goes to this queer summer camp, which, hello, do those exist? I want to go. And basically it's like a regular summer camp, but it's just like filled with queer teenagers and queer like camp directors, and they put on musicals, usually like queer themed musicals, and they learn about like queer history and all that kind of stuff. So it's mostly a summer camp, but it with queerness sprinkled in. And Randy has had a crush on this boy every summer that he's gone to camp, and this year he's decided that he needs to give himself a new look, because this crush only seems to be interested in masculine presenting men, whereas Randy is quite feminine. Couldn't think of how you said feminine. Anyways, so he comes to camp with this whole new look and kind of reintroduces himself to his crush, and yeah, is this kind of completely different person. And really it's a book about being yourself and how you shouldn't have to change yourself for someone to love you. And it really tackles kind of the idea that there's a right way to be gay, and Randy's crush kind of has this mindset from his parents that he can be gay, but he has to be manly. It really tackles this toxic idea of, I can't think of the word, something politics. My mind's blank. I'll put it on the screen because it's a topic I really love to discuss, and for some reason it's gone out of my head. But basically, the fact of like queer people blaming other queer people for the stereotypes that are put upon them and the oppression that are put upon them, when really we should be blaming our oppressors rather than just like fighting between each other in the community. Sorry, I'm not doing a great job at explaining this, but yeah, it just respectability politics. That's the one. Remembered now. Yeah, respectability politics. And yeah, it's just it's a YA book, but it really tackles a lot of themes to do with being queer, but also to do with, you know, sense of self and loving yourself, and having confidence in who you are and not changing for anybody. And I just think it did such a great job of tackling all those topics, as well as being hilarious. It was so fun to read. Randy was such a funny character. He had some really, really great friends, and like they were putting on a performance, a musical, and it just had so many great elements that made it such a joy to read, as well as being actually really informative and really thought-provoking. And yeah, it was just a perfect book. I feel like I've made it sound more politics than it is, but it conveys those messages in a really fun way, and it was very relatable, and the teenagers actually acted like teenagers. You know, they talked about sex, and it was just very like open, and I really, really appreciated it, and it's something I want teens to be reading. It's a book I would want to put in the hands of teens, and I think that's really important as well. So yes, pick it up. Oh god, I get so excited talking about my favourite books, but we do not have time, Izzy. Get it together. The next book, which was a major surprise, but one of the most pleasant surprises, and that is We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee. This is an arc, but it came out in, I want to say, June? It says June here, but I feel like it might have been pushed back to like August or September. Anyway, it's out. But yeah, I was very kindly sent an arc of this by HMH Teen, and this is a fantastic novel that is set during the Second World War and follows a group of teenagers who are Japanese American, and after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, they are put into incarceration camps. If you are unfamiliar, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Japanese American citizens were seen as dangerous, and so they were put into incarceration camps for the duration of for many years, the duration of the war. They were forced to leave their houses, leave their belongings. They weren't given any money. So even after the war, after they came out of these incarceration camps, they weren't really able to live. But it follows, I think, 14 teens, and we hear from each one of them, which I thought at first would be overwhelming with the amount of characters. But this book just blew me away. I think it was the perfect way to present a story. We've got these 14 different teens with different families and different backgrounds and different wants and needs and emotions and anger, and so we get so many different perspectives of what this period in time was like, and what these years that these Japanese citizens were seen as the enemy, you know, what that was like for them, because it's such an untold story. I think it is important that we remember that there were other people who were also treated terribly, and I think, you know, we need to honour those people as well. And I think this book just did such a fantastic job of presenting so many different experiences, because it wasn't just, they weren't all experiencing the exact same thing, and we just got so many different perspectives. And it's so hard. This book made me cry so much. If you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen a lot of photos I post of me just sobbing while reading a book. I look ugly in all of them, but I just need people to know how much these books affected me. But this, I can't explain why it's so good, but it just blew me out of the water. My mum read it too, and she loved it. And it was just such a compelling story. I fell in love with the characters. The bond between them, whether platonically, romantic, familial, and I just could empathize so much with each character, and I could really feel their emotions and their pain and their struggle and their joy and their happiness. Um and they're kind of a big family. And yeah, it's just, I can't tell you how incredible it is. If you're a fan of historical fiction, if you're a fan of hearing stories that are lesser known, that aren't talked about as much, pick this up. If I just can't recommend it enough. Like, truly, just pick it up. Like, I promise you will love it. Like, it's just so good. Coming in at number 9 is, ooh, we're playing Jenga again. It's getting dangerous. Okay. Girl, Serpent, Thorne by Melissa Bashardoust. This is a fantastic book that is a Persian-inspired sort of fairy tale-esque book that follows our main character Soraya, who is the daughter of, I think she's a princess, or like, it's either like royal or she's like the daughter of the emperor. I can't quite remember. But she is born and she is cursed, so that when she touches someone, they they die. So she has kind of been hidden away in the palace for her whole life. And she's always been really well behaved, and she's never tried to change things, and she's always done as she's told, because she kind of feels like she deserves that, and she doesn't deserve to have a life or to be loved or have her own agency, because she can hurt people, and so she doesn't think she's worthy of anything more. And one day she decides to take things into her own hands when she finds out that her mother's been lying to her whole life, and she goes on this adventure to kind of free herself of this curse. And along the way, she meets some people, and yeah, it's so beautiful. The storytelling, the world building was so magical and so like beautiful and rich, and I loved it so much. Our main character Soraya, I adored her. Like, I would have given her the world. Like, I connected with her so much that I was like so sad to finish the book, because I just wanted to like spend more time with Soraya. And this is a standalone book, which so sad, because I just want to vibe with Soraya. There's like a bi-love triangle, and so there's like a sapphic romance as well. And there's like very morally grey characters, and Soraya herself becomes a morally grey character. And it kind of talks about the fact that it kind of tackles the fact that you can do bad things and not necessarily be a bad person, or you can kind of be a bad person but still do good things. Am I explaining this well? No. Basically, it's a beautiful book. It's got morally grey characters that aren't just straight white boys who think they're edgy by being dicks. This is actually really great characters that are fascinating and have so many layers and dimensions to them, and origin stories and redemption arcs, and it's so fantastic. The storytelling is impeccable, the world building is beautiful, it's so rich, the characters are fascinating, the plot is so interesting. It kept me on my toes the whole time. I loved the ending, and yeah, it was a perfect book. Also, that's why these books are on here, because I truly could not have asked for anything more from these books. They just were exactly what I wanted, and also, like, look at this cover and tell me it's not beautiful. I feel like you might want to like go and watch my wrap-ups where I talked about these books, or like read my Goodreads review if I didn't do a good job at explaining why they're so good. I've written reviews for these. Coming in at number 8 is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a YA mystery thriller book that follows our main character Pip, and she, in her hometown, there has, a few years ago, a girl died, was murdered, and her boyfriend confessed to the crime, and then killed himself. So there was no like trial or anything like that, and Pip is doing a project for her like final year in school, and she decides that she's gonna solve this crime because she's never believed that the boyfriend did it, and so she is accompanied by the supposed murderer's brother, and together they try and uncover what actually happened, and try to clear this boy's name, because neither of them believe that he did what he confessed to. And this is probably the best mystery slash thriller that I've ever read. I am pretty incredible at predicting endings. I just can sense shady people. This book had me guessing until the very last page. Like, it was so good, and there were so many suspects, and all of them could have done it. Like, there was so much, there were so many motives behind each suspect, and just every time I thought I had it figured out, it would change. And I have just never been so surprised and so engaged with a mystery or thriller before. And yeah, I'm going to try and be quick now because I've realised we've still got a lot of books to go. It was so good. Of course these books were good, that's why they're on my top 15. Coming in at number 7, Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez. This is a YA romance contemporary novel that is a queer Grease retelling, which I love Grease, the movie musical. So I was like, yes, please. And so it follows our main character Ollie, who has spent the summer with his aunt and cousins because his aunt has cancer, and during this time he has a whirlwind romance with a boy, and then at the end of the summer he goes back home and is ghosted by this boy. This boy doesn't reply to him, doesn't get in contact with him, and then his aunt is getting sicker, and they know she is going to die from her cancer, and so they move back out and stay with his aunt to look after her and his cousins, and support her and the family while they're going through this. So he starts a new school for his senior year, gets to school, finds out that this boy goes to this school too. Chaos ensues. So yeah, it was quite a loose Grease retelling, but it's another book that has superior gay yearning. The yearning was so good. And yeah, it was so funny, it was so relatable. I loved Ollie, I loved the romance, I loved his friends. He was just such a funny narrator, and this book just made me smile so much. It did also make me cry, because of his aunt, but like it's 90% a happy, fun book, but there is the more serious element of his aunt dying. But it was so funny. It was so engaging. Ollie as a narrator was just hilarious. I read an e-arc of it, bought a copy myself because I just loved it so much. I wrote a really long Goodreads review for this book because I just had so much to say and I loved it so much. So if you want to hear more about my thoughts, check out that Goodreads review because I've been talking for a long time. But just it was a really lovely, queer, happy love story. It did have some homophobia, but not that much. And I just loved every page of it. Like, I read it so quickly because I just could not put it down. Like, whenever I put it down, I just wanted to pick it back up again because it was so, so good. The next book, coming in at number 5, it's kind of cheating, because, coming in number 6, sorry. It's Holofox. You may notice I haven't finished it yet, but it's already so good that it got on my favourites list because it's no words, head empty, thoughts. Who are they? Holofox is the third book in the Nevermore series, which is a middle grade series by Jessica Townsend that follows our main character Morgan Crow, who on her 11th birthday is whisked off by an eccentric mentor named Jupiter North to the wonderful world of Nevermore, where she has to compete in 3 trials to become a member of the Wanderer Society, which is like the best thing you can be in Nevermore. She stays at the Hotel Deucalion. It's a magical hotel and her bedroom changes every day to fit her mood. There's a talking big cat. There's a magical school. I can't sell this to you any stronger. If you've watched like any of my videos, you'll probably know I'm obsessed with this series. I've read Nevermore and Wondersmith, the first 2 books, like countless times. Like, it's honestly embarrassing. I don't even put it on Goodreads anymore because the amount of times I've reread these books is honestly a problem. This is the 3rd book. I was very kindly sent this by Jessica herself. She signed it, says to Izzy, burn brightly. Yes, I did cry, and I just haven't been well enough to finish it, but the first half has been so incredible. I love it so much. It's so perfect. I could not ask for anything more. It makes me so happy, but it's also so interesting and so fascinating, and I love it so much, and I don't know why I'm speaking so fast, but it's so good, and it just couldn't not make it on the list, even though I'll finish it in 2021. Pretend that didn't happen, okay? Cool. Read this series. If you haven't, read it. What are you doing? I've talked about it so much. Why are you still here? Get out. Go read it. Coming at number 5 is Music from Another World by Robin Talley. This is a contemporary book set in the 80s. I think it was the 80s. It follows 2 girls who become pen pals via their school, like their religious school, and they slowly become really good friends, and kind of like everyone else stops writing to their pen pals, but they stay in contact and like become like best friends, and then one day one of the girls is gay and her religious parents find out and kick her out of the house, and she has nowhere to go, so she decides to travel to her pen pal's house and see if she can stay there. And she's allowed to stay there, and it follows these 2 girls from friendship to love. The romance is so good. It honestly was just, again, yearning. Do we see a theme here? I'm a fan of yearning, and it's told in an epistolary format, in that it's written in letters and diary entries, which was a really, really smart idea. It really allowed us to get inside each of the girls' heads and see their thoughts and feelings and their relationship build. It talks about the like gay rights movement during that time in San Francisco. Harvey Milk, who was a advocate for queer people during that time. It talks about like figuring out your sexuality. One girl is gay and one girl is bisexual, and sort of like immersing themselves in queer culture, as well as kind of getting into like rock music, punk rock music. Why can I not remember it? Anyway, and the importance of community, and it made me cry at the end, like happy cry, because it was such a beautiful story. I fell in love with these girls and their love, as well as the community they built and the yeah. It it's hard to explain why I loved it so much, but it honestly is just so fantastic. Like I cannot recommend it enough. It's one of the best like sapphic books, as well as being kind of historical fiction in the fact that it takes place in the 80s, and I learned a lot about the kind of queer movement during that time, and it was just such a beautiful story, and I loved it so much, and it's just stayed with me through. I again read this, I want to say around March, and it's just stayed with me the entire year, and I just think about it like all the time. I'm definitely going to reread it soon. It was just so good. I hadn't liked any of Robin Talley's books prior to it, so I didn't go in expecting to love it, but I was so pleasantly surprised, and yeah, it's fantastic. I don't have anything else to say. These books I just love them, okay? Coming in at number 4, it's Dangerous Remedy by Kat Dunn. Again, if you've been on my channel, you probably know that I love this. I've read it twice this year. I read it as an e-arc in April, I want to say, and then I listened to the audiobook like last month, and I also bought a hardback, so I'm dedicated to this book. But this is a fantasy historical fiction book that follows a group of teenagers in the 1700s French Revolution in Paris, and they are a team who will jailbreak people. So they're not on either side of the revolution, but if someone asks for them to get a friend or a family member out of prison, they'll do so, and that's like their job, but also they want to do it for moral reasons as well. But yeah, they get asked to rescue a girl from prison, but when they get there they find out that she is a lot more valuable than they first realized, and that she could change the outcome of the revolution because she has magical powers, and she is far too powerful, and they kind of get into a mess because both sides of the revolution want her, and the group want to keep her safe, and so yeah, they're kind of in this like turf war heist plan situation where they're trying to trick everybody, and it's just incredible. There's a female romance and kind of like a bi love triangle, and the characters are incredible. The story is so good. It's so exciting. Like the main reason I loved it so much was the plot was just so engaging. Like I didn't know what was going to happen next. I loved the setting of the French Revolution. I haven't read a book set during the French Revolution before, so that was really interesting, and I really loved learning about that. I don't know how Kat Dunn like made Paris feel so real. Like it felt like she was alive in 1700s Paris. And honestly, Kat Dunn, are you a vampire? Like, have you been alive for 300 years? Because I don't know how you wrote this book. Big brain. My brain too small. Too small. My brain no thoughts. Except read this book. I'm obsessed with it. I finished it and I was like, when's the second book coming out? And I was like, Izzy, the first book hasn't even come out. This is an arc, you absolute idiot. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna wait forever. Again, I feel like I'm not doing a good job talking about any of these books. I've talked about them all before in different videos or on Goodreads. So if you really do want to find out more, then you can read those, or just read the book. That's what I recommend. Read these books, all of them, please. I'm begging you. They're all so fantastic. Coming in at number 3 will be no surprise to anyone. That is Apollo. The Trials of Apollo, Tower of Nero. This is the beautiful American edition, which is also signed. which like made my life. I'm not going to talk too much about what the book is about, but it's the fifth and final book in the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. This is a series that follows Apollo, who has been cast down from Olympus and is forced to live as a human and rescue the 5 oracle sources, which have been taken over by Python and the triumvirate. Izzy doesn't know how to say words and cannot form coherent sentences. I've talked about books for too long, so we're going to be quick on this one, because what else do I have to say except it's the end to an era of 15 years of Percy Jackson books. I've been reading them since I was 6 or 7 years old. I've read all of them several billion times. I've read one every year of my life growing up. They were a huge part of my childhood. This is the end to an era. I cried a lot. Yeah, tears were shed. It was perfect. Perfect. The characters, the plot, everything was perfect. I wasn't very well at the time of reading this, and I still read it because I was like, I may feel like I'm dying, but this book is in my hands, and so I will read. Literally. Yeah. Do I have anything else to say? No, except I'm having a midlife crisis because this is the last series Rick Riordan is writing in the Percy Jackson universe, and I am not ready. So, send help. All in all, it was a perfect finale. Read this series, read everything by Rick Riordan. I'm also really happy because a few months ago I made a video for a class of 10-year-olds. My mum used to work at a school, and one of the teachers knew about my channel and asked me to make a video talking about Rick Riordan books to get them to want to read, and so I made a video and I sent it to them, and I read like an excerpt from Percy Jackson and just talked about how great Percy Jackson was. And then I got a text the other day to say that like the whole class is like hooked on Percy Jackson, and honestly, if that's not my life's ambition, what is? Like I can die happy. I've made children pick up Percy Jackson and fall in love with it, and like I am so happy because that is my childhood, and I want everyone to have that childhood, and like I'm getting them excited to read, which is like just everything I could ever want. So yeah, that made me really excited. It was a perfect finale to the series. Honestly, does it sound like I'm on 1.5 times speed because I am talking so fast? I apologise. We're on to the last two. You can probably guess what these are going to be. Let's be real. I'm predictable. Coming in number 2 is The House in the Cerulean Sea. I finally have a copy thanks to the wonderful, beautiful, lovely, delightful angel that is Amber. And I'm so happy to finally have a copy. This is an adult book, but I think anyone can read it of any age, by T.J. Klune. And it follows, it's a magical contemporary story, I would say, that follows our main character Lionel, who is a social worker for magical children. Basically, in this world, magical children exist, but they're kind of outcast to society, and they tend to live in group homes, sort of like foster care homes, or yeah, and he is a social worker, and he is sent to go and view this foster home, and stay there for a month to see if the man who is running the home is doing a good job. And there are 6 children that live there. One, Lucy, is the Antichrist. That's chill. One is a gnome. One is a green blob. One is a werewolf, but instead of turning into a wolf, he turns into a Pomeranian. Yes. And Lionel discovers what love truly is. And it's a story of found family and familial love, and how you can be a family even if you're not tied by blood, and how devoted you can be to one another, and how important it is for children to grow up in an environment where they feel loved and understood and safe and normal. And it kind of looks at the way that this village has kind of made sure that these magical children don't feel welcome, and it like challenges like these stereotypes and challenges their outdated views. And also Lionel and the man that runs the home have a romance, and it's the purest thing ever. Like ever. I love it so much. It's just really a story of family and found family and love, and all the characters are so good. I have not heard a single bad word about this book. Honestly, you can't not love it. Like, it's actually impossible to dislike this book. I swear to God, you can't not. It just brings me so much joy, so much comfort. I've already read it 3 times, I think, this year. Don't at me. I love it so much. It just is such a joyful, hopeful, beautiful, happy book that it's just all about love in all its different forms. And I just think it's stunning, and it just brings me so much joy, and I just want everyone to read it because it's truly such a fantastic experience, and I just wish I could read it for the first time again. And the final book, to absolutely no one's surprise, King of Crows by Libba Bray. I mean, I think just the amount of tabs says enough. Look at that. I used up like 2 packets of tabs on this book. I might as well have just highlighted the entire thing. This King of Crows by Libba Bray is the 4th and final book in the Diviners series, which is my favourite series of all time. I adore it. I have read the first 3 books about 4 times in a year, and bearing in mind they're big boys, they're chunky, that's a ridiculous amount of times. And I read this in January. I got an e-arc of it, which I did have a breakdown about. I read it, cried for about 3 hours when I finished it, reread it a few months ago, cried again for a few hours after reading it, tabbed it to death, and need therapy. Yeah, yeah. It was the perfect finale. Am I having a crisis about the fact that I'm never going to read any new stories about these characters again, and I'm never going to see them interact, and I'm never going to see anything new from them ever again, and all my best friends and also my children, and that makes me sad? Yeah. If you haven't seen a video of mine, or if you have, tell me one video where I haven't mentioned the Diviners. Doesn't exist, because I won't shut up about it. It is a historical fiction fantasy book that is set in 1920s New York and follows a group of teenagers who have diviner-like powers. They can heal people, they can walk in dreams, they can see like people's pasts, they can see memories, they can do all sorts, predict the future, and the overarching story of these 4 books is basically them finding out why they have these magical powers, and taking down this like demon that wants to blow the world up. Not quite, but similar. And it's fantastic. I can't tell you how good the series is and how much I love it. I think it's one of the smartest series things I've ever read. It's so intelligent. The foreshadowing throughout these books, the way they intertwine, the subplots, the plot twists, the way all these stories that seem separate come together, it's just astounding. The only book that I think is more intelligent is The Starless Sea, which was my favourite book of last year, and I just clearly have a love for these books that are just so smart in the way they're written and in the way everything comes together. I love the characters so much. One of my all-time favourite characters is Ling. She comes in the second book, and she is a Chinese American citizen who had polio and uses crutches and braces, and she's also an asexual lesbian, and like she's the love of my life, and one of the only disabled characters I've read about that I actually relate to, and she loves science, and like we're just basically the same person except I'm white. um, the love between all these characters, phenomenal. It's kind of another sort of found family situation where these characters would die for each other, probably have tried multiple times to die for each other, whether it's romantically, platonically, familial. Again, there's such strong bonds between all of them, and it makes me so emotional seeing these characters, like seeing their bond grow over these 4 books. And yeah, I just couldn't have asked for a better ending. I cried so much. It was stunning, and I think something the Bebray does so well is tie this history of America into the current themes of America, of racism and homophobia, and the way Americans treat people, the way they treat the oppressed people, the way that in hundreds of years there's still so many of the same problems, and it's quite unsettling how much the themes of this book that's set in the 1920s can be linked to current day issues. It talks about the ghosts of America's past and how forgetting them isn't the right thing to do. You can't just sweep them under the rug and pretend that those things didn't happen. And that the kind of, if we don't talk about what happened, then we will repeat the same mistakes, which is kind of what's happening in the world at the moment, and how in order to move forwards we need to remember what came before, and it's just so beautiful. Again, I wrote a really long Goodreads review, so if you've read the first 3 books you can read my review. But yeah, I just can't recommend this series enough. I feel like I can never do it justice in talking about it. I can't believe it's over. So yeah, those are my favourite books of this year. This is a very long video. I apologise greatly. I get very excited when talking about my favourite books. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some recommendations. As you can tell, are we surprised that most of these books are queer? No. Are we surprised that these are diverse books with disabled characters and characters of colour and talking about mental health? No. I have a brand, okay? So yeah, I implore you to pick any of these books up, and you will not be disappointed. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed filming it. Sorry if I got a little bit mixed up with my words. My brain isn't working great at the moment, and my chronic illness is really trying hard to ruin my life. So yeah, I might not have been my most coherent and well spoken, so I apologise for that. But yeah, I still hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!